If you're a startup, you might not be alive to see 5 years. My aim was to get to do one thing, get a rejection. The people who are doing startups, you have a big dream, but what's a big dream? Disappointments are there, stress will be there. It's a bunch of stuff. Worked at Intel before. Criticism is something you need to learn to receive. It's a very big mind shift from what we have in Africa, where being direct is offensive.
And so this is a special edition of Be Agile podcast. Nice. Awesome.
Yes.
Frank, welcome very much. Welcome to IPF. Welcome to Be Agile.
I have made it.
You've made it. So, me and Frank, we go way, way back, counting about 11 years back.
Yes.
And today Frank chose to surprise me. All the way from Germany. He just called when he was at the airport. Like, yo, guess who is in your area? And I said, like, yo, you should come through.
Yeah.
And not to waste this opportunity by enemies.
Yeah.
We had to set up cameras quickly, and get some wisdom and like all the exposure and the goodness that you'll be able to talk to the audience of Be Agile.
Yeah.
And so this is a special edition of Be Agile podcast. For previous episode, we've been having mostly non-technical founder. This non-technical founder of today is a little bit very technical, and I'll let Frank introduce himself and tell a little bit of a story where you're coming from and where you're at, and we'll talk where you're going. But tell us your journey in technology as Frank Tamre. Welcome very much.
Thank you. So the thing that I would say is, like, I really consider myself as someone who started from non-technical and moved all the way to do technical stuff. And now I manage people. So let me start from now and then I'll work backwards. So currently I am an engineering manager at a company called Tamondo. It's based in Berlin, Germany rather, but it's like we operate in the whole of Germany and we do installation of heat pumps. So heat pumps is it's not a concept we have in Africa because we don't have the concept of winter. And what we do with the heat pumps is we are trying to create this thing of us moving to a renewable energy. I think very soon we'll probably have it in Africa, or maybe we've already started having the movement. And so we do the installation of heat pumps, and that involves heat pumps, solar panels. Now we've added solar as EVs there, and then we're also going to very soon add EV charging stations. So it's a bunch of things that are just related to us using things that are renewable energy, green energy for that matter, for us. Yeah. So that's what I do now. And before that, I was actually a team lead at a company called Kiosk. And this is a company that we were doing B2B, selling of merchants. So this is like e-commerce merchants. And it was really an interesting experience to just like lead the team of Android engineers there. It was very interesting. So before that, so I usually do this thing where I work, I take a break, I work, I take a break, I work, I take a break. And before that, I think I'd taken a break. But then before, I was actually doing consulting for a company based out of Munich and London. And this was a Snap Mobile. And so Snap Mobile it's a dev shop that does develop different kinds of software for different kinds of institutions, banking institutions, name it. Before that, I was actually doing a kids thing. So that was a contractual. So I was doing kids, and kids was mostly for me, just had developed a passion. Before that, I'd started Moringa School, co-founded Moringa School. And what Moringa School was a boot camp. So this was back in 2014-ish, 2015. Did that until 2016 and then I left. But what ended up happening is I started the kids program. So I think I wanted to do kids teaching of technology because it was a very fascinating thing. And for me, it was, how do you take a very complex concept like web development and teach to a child who is 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, and not from a drag and drop things, but it's like, how do they actually get right got from that point? So I'd say before that, it's a bunch of stuff. Worked at Intel before, and then, before Moringa School was actually Intel, and then all the way there. I think we actually met with Grayson when I was doing Intel. Yeah. I'd come to do a boot camp. We are doing like an optimization of stuff and technologies. And this was like 2013, 2014 there. Yeah. 2014. 2014. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you you did not mention like where you, from the way you got into technology. I need people to be able to pick up that, because I know you did not major in computer science,
Yes.
communication or engineering or whatsoever. How did you get to jump into doing technology development to everything in between? To now an engineering manager.
So I went to Nairobi University, but before that, there's this movie called The Matrix.
Matrix, yeah.
I lived the latest one, the original Matrix. So I remember watching it, and part of the interest I had was, you see those green things that go from top to screen to bottom, yeah? I always thought that I want to recreate this. Then there's actually a scene where I think the main character gets into the computer, and I was like, wow, I can actually get into the computer. So the child me, my dad had bought this, the previous white screen computers and put it in the house. And so we were playing Need for Speed. But I quickly realized my interest was not in playing Need for Speed Most Wanted, where you race 15 people all the way up. My interest was mods. How can I create a mod and then sit back and watch my brothers play it? So after I could mod some things, change the difficulty levels, and then put it back into the game, compile it, and then give it to my brothers and sit there watching them. I was so fascinated with it. I did not know programming. I just would look at the thing and say, wait, this is difficulty, add this, change the route or something like that. Then I could do that. Then it was just modifying, taking the source code, changing, implementing. But the push towards technology started when, after watching The Matrix, after doing all of those things with Need for Speed Most Wanted, was, how can I get into the computer? In my head, I knew there is something in this computer that can make me move from where I am to be inside and maybe be able to talk to my brother. So first of the things I would do was, Windows, you change you put paint and then the screensaver. So changing the screensaver for me was amazing. I thought that was step one in me introducing myself to tell my brothers, just wait for like 5 minutes.
It will happen.
And then you see my name there. Welcome to this. This is this. And I was really fascinated, right? And I think from there, when I went to this was just after high school. So in university, I was actually called to do Bachelor of Arts. So that is economics, political science, and French. I did not finish. I dropped out. And in between there, I met two people that actually had an impact on me. There's a guy called Ken. I'll keep on mentioning his name. He's very silent, but Ken was the first person. And then there's a guy called Peter. Three people. Ken, Peter, and there was a lady. Currently, she is a lecturer at University of Nairobi Computer Science Department. I will not mention her because I feel like people usually go and start stalking her, but she's not there online anyway. So the first person was always like, so the lady I remember, admittedly, she was very beautiful. And as people in campus, so I sat there and she's way older than me. So I was in Christian Union, we are seated and she's busy trying to show me how to edit Joomla. Not Joomla now, I think it was Joomla when Joomla was like a thing. CMS, when guys were about CMS. Yeah. And this is just to give people a concept. So the timelines, right? So this is 2009, 2008, 2009 there. So I'm in uni and we go to Christian Union, we need to redo our website. So I sit down with people, we start editing the website and she shows me how to be done. The entire time I'm focused on how she's talking. I'm like, wow, this lady is beautiful. Wow, she's saying all these things, right? So I'm not concentrating. And then she leaves to go for lunch and expects me to make changes. And I was not able to actually make the changes. And she comes back and says, did you do it? And I was like, yeah, I struggled. And she was the first person who actually told me, what was your struggle? And then she opens Google and literally wrote everything that I told her. I could not do how to, and shows me the result. And she was like, this is one. What shows me the first link and says, of what's the number here? Scrolls to the bottom and shows me the page count. I felt really stupid. But that's how I started doing this thing of saying, hey, if I'm stuck, I can look for something there. And she told me also how to ask questions. And then the impact of Ken and Peter. Peter showed me how to use Photoshop. That time it was Adobe, all the Adobe products. So there was Fireworks, Illustrator, all of those. So I started using them. Macromedia, sorry. So I started using them, editing, how to do. I used to use Paint. So he showed me, hey, instead of using Paint, you can actually use this very powerful tool called Illustrator, Photoshop, etc. So we start using those things and editing and then moving on. And then Ken was the guy who had the hugest impact. I think Ken and the lady had the largest impact to my life because Ken showed me what engineering was. He was doing electrical engineering. And I was just a guy who was doing Bachelor of Arts, and I had a lot of time. So we had met in Christian Union. We were interacting. He'd give me access to his room. He's a senior. Access to his room. So I'd go to his room. He had a computer, desktop, nothing on the sides. It was really clean, So I was like, okay. So I'd really spend a lot of time coding, not watching movies. So like he'd show me how to use Fireworks. Fireworks was the first software I started editing, writing scripts. Flash, sorry. So I was like, hey, Flash, hey, okay, I can use Fireworks and then make changes and then export. I see the slides. At that time, websites were at the top. Slideshow. Should write the scripts. So I moved from there to like doing JavaScript for fun. I really fell in love with how do you create user interfaces from the start. And then school didn't really start to make sense because I stayed for a whole semester without going to class. Then when I went and did exams, I actually had clean A's. And I was like, well, what am I doing here, So I left it, which is, I don't advise anyone to drop out of school, by the way. And then I think after that was just like hustling and trying to see like how would technology make sense. One thing led to the other. I was in this boot camp thing with Intel. Then Intel hired me. Then of course, it's the journey now. That's the connect to where we are till today. Yeah.
Nice. Very, very, very interesting and very impressive.
Yeah.
Now, Frank, you forgot to mention, like every other Kenyans are very proud people. And they're expected to say like, hey, I'm Frank Tamre, I'm Kenyan. Now, what I wish we learn here based on your years of experience, working with engineers, developers, being a developer yourself, and seeing almost every transformation in the ecosystem now from Kenya, where it is very vibrant in terms of like the technology startup and everything. You admittedly you are Kenya and Nairobi is somewhere, some places in terms of like just infrastructural support, the government and everything compared to maybe most of the East African countries. Okay. We wish to learn about like just that part. Like what could we be able to learn from that? And you've seen first world engineering and building up solutions in Germany. Working out as engineering manager. And just that context of how do people build digital solutions that are really impacting people's lives from the point of ideating the solution to building something that is scalable. And how can people be able to navigate? I know it is a mouthful question, and I'm throwing it out there because I know you can find your way around it.
So there's so I'll say this, right? There's usually different components when you're talking about building a product, right? And I think one of the things I noticed was when people are building a product, it depends on who is starting to build it, right? So if you have technical founders, what they think is important is writing code. If you have non-technical co-founders, sometimes they're also worried about, hey, I need a developer to implement this. Now, the problem is, code is not the problem. The problem is, with this product, you're not going to get funding or anything, or put lights or be that fancy founder if you cannot sell it. And it looks weird when, let's say, someone like me who's technical says that, hey, code is not the problem. It's the least of your problems, because you can write as much code as you want, but what problem are you solving? So if you start off with that bit of saying, what's the problem I'm solving? And I think right now, yes, I'm on vacation, and some of the things I've been thinking about, we'll talk about that then later, is like this, there's this thing called first principle thinking. And I think for me, I love it because I can summarize it as this is where you start asking these why questions and how. It's usually just why and how, if you look at like a 6-step thing of how these things are. And from my perspective, it's you who's starting out to build a product. Why are you building that product? You really need to question that part. Like, don't spend too much time thinking, but it's like thinking, execute, because a startup is not, it's not this company thing that is there. No, you're literally validating an idea. Will this thing work or not? So you also need to be able to say, hey, I'm not going to be attached to this. So step one is, what are you building? So if you know what you're building, then that's good. Now, this involves you, technical or non-technical person, being able to leave the room, the bedroom. and go outside. I usually say don't be a bedroom developer. Bedroom developer is that person who sits in the dormitory and thinks, or in their bedroom and think, I'm going to build $1 million piece of software and say, this is going to be the next big thing. It's never going to work. For me, what actually works is leave your room, go outside, talk to people. Because the beauty of people is you usually get a couple of answers. They'll tell you, not now. If not now, when? Ideally, you want to close this person. I would actually say this. So when I was doing Moringa School, right?
Yeah.
So I used to like waking up in the morning and I'd get into public transport. And when I get into public transport, my aim was to do one thing, get a rejection. That was the goal. If I don't get a rejection, I say the day was not successful. So what do I mean by rejection? So I talk to random people on the public transportation system. I think in Dar es Salaam, they call them daladalas, right? Yeah. So us was a matatu. Yes, exactly. So I'd sit in the matatu and talk to a random person, the person next to me. And the rule was I don't want to offend them, but I'd ask for the weirdest things. For example, pay for me my fare. That's the aim. I want this person to pay fare for me, but I don't want to beg them. I want to try and convince them to pay fare for me and not that I'm going to pay them back. It's the most outrageous thing to do in a daladala, of course. I don't know the person. We just met, we sat, and it's not like I'm dressed shabby, Proper. So I was like, hey, do you mind buying this? And they'll say no, and then you try and convince them, and then they pay for you, and you're like, failed. But if they tell you no, you try and see, can I push it to a point where I'm not becoming uncomfortable, but they actually can see it makes sense. At some point, I started escalating it. Then I think at roundabout some point, it's now like just selling concepts to different people. I'd look at the person and try and guess like, okay, maybe this person can't pay the fee of Moringa School, but try and see, hey, can I convince this guy to sign up for a course 10x cheaper about this program I'm doing? Can I tell them about the thing I'm doing and see how can I convince this person to do it? The idea was not that I was selling, but I was actually practicing the concept of selling things. Try and convince them with anything. Oh, I have a pencil. Can I convince them to buy it? Just some random things to do on a bus ride that's like 20, 30 minutes. And I think doing that started making me not to be afraid of it. So it comes back to that first point of like, get out of the room. Go meet these people. Especially you see technical founders would be a very nice thing because, as developers, we are like artists. We are very, not afraid. We are very caught up. When someone comes to criticize the thing you've done, you feel attacked. And it's not like you're talking about the solution you've built. It's not good. It's not this. And try and do, I don't call it networking, but try and expose yourself. And the exposure is try and talk to different people, different concepts, think about different things. So the first thing is like, know what you're building, right? So why are you building it? What exactly are you building? And I feel like if you have co-founders, all of you need to be in agreement of what you're doing. And I'd say like me being Christian, there's this nice saying that says like in the Bible, two cannot work together unless they're in agreement. And then the second bit for me now is like if you're doing something with co-founders, it's good to have co-founders. Why? There is something that the other person will enable you to see and call you out that you've not seen, and to build relationships. Like for example, I was telling you, I'm very impressed with the fact that you and Nelson have known each other for God knows how long, and for you guys to build something for that period of time, it's a long time, Now I'd say IPF is probably a teenager, right?
Yeah.
And you can imagine to do that, to be able to have that relationship and say, hey, this is how we're going to operate. This is how we're going to deal with conflicts with your co-founder. Now. That's like point 2, because the most important person, in my opinion, is not the customer. It's actually your colleagues. People say employees. I like using the word colleagues. Your co-founder and your colleagues. And these people are very important because they are the ones who are helping you build your dream, helping you get to a certain point. And I think when you have this collective where they actually feel this level of ownership in the product itself and in the vision itself, it actually helps a lot of things. People don't remember what you told them to do. It's how you made them feel. And so you don't need to like say, hey, I'm going to inspire them or anything. No, just make them buy into the vision of what you guys are doing. And sometimes you'll be shocked at things that would happen. So once you know how, now we start getting into the specifics. I'll branch off from not talking about like the general other things, but let me summarize it in terms of like what I've seen in these 2 places where I've been in. Now, here in, I guess like here in Africa, we're not fans of process. And And I've been lucky enough now to be working in a place like Germany that is a huge believer in processes, right? I would actually recommend people to watch a nice video that I watched before I went to Germany. That is how the the Mercedes factory works. It's on YouTube. It's a very old video. How do they build cars? And if you think about how they build cars, if you look at a Tesla, if you look at a Mercedes, like right now, people are like, hey, I want to have a German machine, etc. Right? If you look at how they build these cars, it's not one person who builds it, but each person has a part, right? A component that they need to do. So you have this main thing, and then you combine. There's wheels, and there's one person, and that's the beauty of like when you go to the West, for example, compared to here. They're huge fans of being not masters in everything, but they've really zeroed down on specifics. So you have a Python engineer who is really good at Python and would really understand the concept. So sometimes when you ask them, hey, do you know this thing? Or if they know software engineering, they would know the specifics really well, and they know the things that surround them. The difference between us, and I understand like where we are right now, if I do the comparison, having been in two places, is like we are generalists because we are in this evolutionary phase. We're getting there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trash and say we're not doing anything. There's some things we do in Africa really well that is not being done by the West. And so you say, hey, can we get really good at this thing that we're doing? So if I am a founder in a company, if we're building, let's say, for the sake of an example is a financial system, because we've been talking finances, right?
Yeah.
If it's a financial solution, do I understand the financial industry well, or the specific of where I'm working from, to a level where I understand my business really well? Because, for example, being able to throw in numbers, being able to understand like, hey, I mentioned this thing on first principles thinking, like, what is this thing we are doing? Why are we doing this thing the way we are doing it? And how can we make it better? And then the result of like first principles thinking is when you start with why are we doing the things we're doing, is like, what's the data that's backing us? That's the one thing people don't have, like most startups. It's like if you come and ask the person, they focus on building, but then it's like, okay, how many customers do you have? We don't have. I was like, okay, cool. Now let me give you an example. I went to a pitching competition. And it was crazy when I went to this pitching competition. It was a startup pitching competition. The same that I would go for, let's say here, I've gone a multiple of them. The difference was there was one startup that was building a solution and they had a co-founder. The founders were Netherlands, Germany, and Mexico. It was an agricultural startup. Guess what? They were pitching in a startup competition. They had been in operation for around 8 months or 7 months from idea stage. They already had test at least like 10 farmers in Mexico, 10 farmers in Netherlands, 10 or 15 farmers in Germany. I was like, what? They were showing us data on dashboards. Of course, give me the example. If you are the person with 100 million and you're seated here, one shows you data, tells you, hey, we are checking this, we are pre-investment. No angel investment, nothing. We've just been running with this. We are
8 months.
8 months. Compared to someone else comes and tells you, we are planning on, we will. Where am I going with this?
Yeah.
Be a doer, not a future doing. We are planning on. Stop being we are planning on, be a doer. What have you done as at today? Because words like accountability, responsibility, these are not things that we have here that much. We say we have them, but we don't have them, because then how do I hold you accountable? Accountability is when you ask me, hey, Frank, you said you'll do X. Where are you now? And it comes back to this be agile, like in the be agile conversation, right? Okay. So in the be agile, in agile methodology, right? So if we say we are doing stuff, it's like we're moving. It's not like we want to do this thing at the end. Hey, I'm going to deliver for your system at the end here. No, we break it down into chunks and then we do an evaluation every single beat
yes.
as we move, right? And the crazy thing is, what we forget in these small bits is we keep each other accountable, whether we say we are using whatever system to keep each other accountable, right? So if you say every single day we have a stand-up.
Stand-up.
Yeah. You summarize it. It's a stand-up. We should be able to do the thing when standing up, right? So it's like, what did you do yesterday? What are you working on today? And I usually hear people add, what are you planning on doing? Remove the planning on doing. No. Because planning on doing is usually where people tell lies. If you say what you did yesterday and what you're doing today, it's very easy for us to track. And then, what are your blockers? Now, the question I usually ask the team I'm with is, Afterwards, I make them ask, this blocker that you had, is it that you could not solve it before we did the stand-up? How long did you have the blocker till there? Then do you care enough? Because if you had the blocker yesterday at midday, you're having the stand-up today at 10 a.m., what were you doing between midday and there? Not to be a person who's there, but to make them start to think like, hey, you can do something. Did you raise an alarm? Did you post it on Slack? Like somewhere? Did you do anything, And it's a startup, it's like you're someone who's growing. Move away from we are planning on to, I did this, I'm planning on doing this. Now, the thing I'll tell you that I've realized is most of the things that we are talking about now, like this one of doing and executing, there are small, I'm really talking about the things that I've been thinking of recently also that are really connected to the broader perspective, right? So it's this concept of, if you look at, I call it compound interest. We were talking about compound interest. Yeah. So what compound interest is like, I have, let's say, 10%, 10 Tanzanian shillings or 100,000 Tanzanian shillings. So if I have 100,000 Tanzanian shillings, if I invest it at the end of the month, I get 10%. So it's 110. In the second month, if it's compound interest, it's 110 times 10. And then you continue. So you can easily get to a lot of money at the end of the year compared to 10% per annum. 10% per annum is your money will stay there, and at the end of the 12 months, I get it. Now, what am I talking about compound interest? The people who are doing startups, you have a big dream. But what's a big dream? You can break it down into steps. Don't focus on there. I operate on a principle of your next 5 moves. Your next 5 moves, for me, how it worked out for me and what has helped me is I need to focus on what can I do now? What's my ultimate goal? I want to be a big whatever. Name it. What's the first thing I can do right now that does not require me to talk to does not require an external force? If it is write an email to this person, I have the contact, I have everything, I will write the email now. What's the first thing I can do? So your next 5 moves, I don't need to know step number 4. Step number 5 is very abstract, big ambition. So step number 1 is what can I do now? And then number 2 is what moves me from 1 that's connected to 2. So I need to write an email. But does the email contribute to step number 5? And then when I do 1, I quickly move to 2. Now here's the crazy part. You never move to step number 3. Because when you move to number 2, it's already optimizing to say, hey, what's your next move? Again, you're going back to that cycle, right? What's my next 5 moves from number 2? Goes back again to
5. Yeah.
So my step number 2 becomes my step number 1.
Yeah.
I do it. Again, I'm thinking, I'm optimizing for step number 2. And it's always this cycle of making it better and better. If I connect this to compound interest, how, for example, I have really, I've been asking you every time I come, it's like we spend time and I ask you like, hey, how is IPF? How are you guys doing? What are you guys working on? This is very interesting, And the crazy thing that I've realized is it has been a journey of, and when I look at generally, is like some of those successful companies is like they don't focus on what's a big goal. No, we're going to get to 100 million. No. Leave the 100 million. Every single month I'm going, or every single week, because if you're a startup, it should not even be a week. Every single day, I'm going to get 5 new users. And I'm paranoid about getting 5 new users. Pain. Because pain is what you need. So I say, hey, 5 users. Okay. Let's do the math of compound interest. If I started with 0 users, if at the end of the day, I didn't get 5, I get 2. If the next day I'm targeting 5, very soon at the end of the week, if you're doing a consistent 5 new users every single day, day 1, we got 0. Day 2, we get 2. If you do 5 for the rest of the week, you're doing 25 plus 2, you get to 27 new users.
Yeah.
You continue scaling it up at 5. Very soon you're thinking 5 is a very small number. Goes back to your next 5 steps, right? So if you optimize now, we are doing 5. Let's double it. Let's push ourselves to 10. You're growing. You get to 100 million, but you don't know how you go to 100 million. You didn't get to 100 million by saying, boom, big advertisement, and you're now going to get to 100 million. It's like I did 5, then I did the next 5, and 5. It's connected to the microeconomics thing, which is like, what are these? Because what is microeconomics? I'm studying how individuals, firms, and companies or whatever make decisions, households. How do they make decisions? And they're buying decisions. You have microeconomics and macro. Macro is countries and governments and etc. Now, what these small individuals do, the choices they make, how they buy, directly impacts how the government behaves. And so for me, it's like, if I'm a startup person, what are these small decisions that I make every single day, every single hour that is moving me towards this goal that I want to achieve, right? So from my perspective is I don't need to focus on the big goal. What's the small thing that I can do right now to change my environment very quickly? And I'm not going to say I'm at a very nice, awesome position. No, it's like, it's the small changes that I've made and small changes that I'm now learning to make that are like, at this. Okay, cool. Now we are at a good point. Now we understand we have a foundation. Then now we build on top of it and build on top of it. Now, all these are just a summary on like how I'm seeing things evolving on the other side. And this is like this focus on those parts. The other bit that is also interesting that I've seen is, I talked about processes. I didn't like get deeper into it. So these processes, when we talk about processes, is a process is just like, how do you do things? And it's structured, it's documented somewhere. So people really feel like it's a waste of a lot of time. Fine, cool. I agree. The first thing is do it fast. Then you improve on it. And then you know, okay, here's how we do stuff. And then we document stuff. It's architecture, we document it. So we say, for example, a good one is, so we want to build software, right? A good example that for us, I think we follow is, it's very interesting. We sit with the team. We have the product requirements. This is what we need to build. This is the user. Acceptable things is here. What is in scope for now? For V1, V2, V3, V4, we'll talk about it. Our focus is not the ultimate goal. We don't waste time building the ultimate goal. It's like, what's this first version of 5, 6, 7 things that we need to do, take it to market, test, come back, optimize, and go on and on and on. And when we build it, we make some trade-offs. We really discuss the trade-offs. We say, hey, we do very good software engineering practices. That's the beauty of my team. They really insist on it. So we do tests, unit, integration, name it, and you have a QA engineer. But again, we are lucky to have that. But you don't need that as a startup guy. But unit tests, people will write unit tests, integration tests, you can write that. It looks like, oh yeah, we're spending a lot of time, but you can quickly write that. So we have this good, so-called the practices that you want to use. And it's, what are the acceptable practices? You going to look at how Netflix is building software is a waste of your time. Because you're not Netflix. You don't have the stress that they have. You're not Microsoft, you're not Google. You can read and put it at the back of your head, but you don't have to go and implement it at that time. What is of interest is like, what am I building? Do I have it documented somewhere? I have an architectural document, diagram and a document. This is the architecture we are using. And it's easy for us to evolve it. When we have a discussion on a technical concept, it's here. What we try and avoid as the founder is we try and move you away from being the person who owns everything and you understand everything to be shared knowledge with 2 or 3 people. If you're alone, that's fine. But if you're 2 or 3 people, have a discussion. Let's discuss it. Let's put it out there. There's a lot of power in you moving your thoughts from your brain to something that is written, drawn, etc. People can challenge, question, have the reviews. We have weekly architectural discussions where we actually delve deeper into the architecture of the system we've built. We analyze it and say, okay, these are the trade-offs, this is not working. And the architecture for us, the architectural document, is a living, breathing document. And what happens is we have to actually look at it every 2 months, every 3 months. And this is because of the scale of our company. But for our startups, maybe they're looking at this every 2 weeks. And they lay the foundation and quickly remove, add, and remove. And can go. You can start off with people say, hey, do microservices. I'm like, yeah, you can do microservices, but the amount of technical debt that you're building is also a lot because you don't have the software engineers to actually sustain the microservices. You can get there at some point, but you're thinking of how do I build this thing such that it can work together. Microservices is good, yes, but who will maintain it? Do you have the personnel and the skill set to do it? Because when you talk microservices, how do they talk to each other? How do you, thinking about such kind of things. And so it's like on software, right? And I feel like software and product are things that are actually merged together that you can't actually separate them, to be honest. And like for you to say, we're going to throw away the product people because they don't know what they're thinking, that's like a waste of your time. You need to put the 2 people together. So you have the software, you say, hey, we have the document, we are writing this thing out. I know you guys have probably talked about it in the in the sessions and trainings, right? But things like version control is very important. It doesn't matter whether you're 1 developer, 5 developers, 20, 100. Git is free. Come on, you can have a private and move on. And in the private one, you can start by just pushing code. Just push it there because it's easy for you to roll back and say, we started from here, we've gone to here. Okay, fine. You don't want to pay for Trello, Git, whatever. Even GitHub has this project management thing. Exactly, right? You can use it. And there are free tools out there that you can actually use. we have documentation tools that you can actually use to just like document stuff. You can move away from Word to whatever tools you want to use. I don't know, from Notion to God knows what. And you can use these things where you actually start to think about it. And the important thing is not what's the framework or what's the template I'm going to use, but it's like, how do you guys want to document your stuff? Because you're also creating a culture there, which leads me to the other point. What's the culture of the engineering team that you want to create? And the truth is, the founders have a direct impact on the culture of the company. If the founders are people who do not share, no one is going to share. If the founders are people who are like, hey, we like to collaborate, it is visible, it is seen. If the founders are respectful, the other people will be respectful. And that's like the most important part. Like, start building that culture from a very starting point. It goes back to the things of like, what are the small things we're doing to grow it? And here's what I'll say. I'm still doing my research on 100 million, but I'll tell you what I've seen so far is when the C-level, this is the founders meet to discuss stuff, the discussions usually entail things like, how do we better ourselves? How do we grow? Criticism is something you need to learn to receive. You're not always going to be perfect. Now, you need to learn to receive it because we don't have it that much. What I noticed is like, I feel like in our culture, whenever we are given criticism, usually comes out two ways. Either someone is abusing you or you feel like they've really attacked you and you feel really sad for a couple of days. You can also learn how to give it and to receive it.
Yeah.
So for me, I think with my team, we have these things called one-on-ones, and whenever we meet, I will talk to them, but then I ask them, or they bring the topics. And sometimes like I have to give them like feedback and constructive and not. One thing I learned is when it's criticism, if it's for the whole team, I never get to specifics. I'll talk general. When it's praise, I'll be very specific on the person. Hey, Julius did this. This was really amazing. Congrats. This is this. So when you give the positive reinforcements, guys get to see these are the things we need to do to get ahead. This is what this other person is doing. Criticism will sit on a one-on-one basis, and the person will ask questions, and you make them understand, hey, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the things that you've done. And so that's what I've seen like also is working. And this is like a very strange culture that is actually new for us, when we talk about, and this is like part of like us thinking about, hey, the people you work with, your colleagues, the people you call now employees are actually human beings who can actually buy into the vision that you have more than you. Because you will run to a point. They don't stretch it to get to the point that you need to get it to, and so that's what I've seen. And also, lastly, maybe if I forget some things, maybe next time we can come and talk, right? Because right now I feel like I have a lot of info to like spell, right? Finances. Unit economics are the most important thing. So for me, it's you're selling a product. What's the the formula is very simple. What is the price, right? Price is cost, or like the selling price. But before you get the selling price, you start with what's the cost of making this thing? What's the actual cost? Sit down, spend time, understand it. So once you know the cost, okay, what's the profit I want to earn? And then once I have this profit or markup, and then what's my buying? What's the selling price I'm going to sell to people? This formula is the same whether you're doing software, whether you're selling maize, whether you're selling, doesn't matter what you're selling, even the microphones, right? That's the formula all through. Yeah. You need to have that at the back of your head. What's my profit margins? I'm doing 1%. Okay. Where am I going to? And so that's the bit that I can say. Now, something that has popped up right now in my head is founders and people doing startups, right? Strategy is very, very important. And when you talk strategy, please think this way. You see 3 months. There's a book I read. It's called The 12-Week Year. 12-week year, what those two authors talk about is you can actually have 1 week being 1 year. And if you think of, hey, in the next 1 year, this is what I want to achieve, every single week becomes important. Now, when every single week becomes important, every single day becomes important for you. How I flipped it for myself was to say, there are goals for the startup and the company, but I have my personal goals, and I have to align either the company's goals to my goals or my goals to the company's goals. If it's a startup, for that matter, you think of this thing they call OKRs. What is the thing I want to achieve in the next 3 months, 6 months? Fine. People say, what's your 5-year plan? if you're a startup, you might not be alive to see 5 years. It's just the truth, things can happen. The best thing you can tell yourself is, I am paranoid about the next 3 months. I need to survive for 3, 6 months, 1 year. If you do 3, 6, 1, it's good, because 1 year becomes your next 5 steps. 1 year is your 5th step.
Yeah.
This is where I want to get to, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't need to be very lofty. Just throw that, that's it. Vision, mission, throw that the trash bin. I know people really can come and attack me because of it. Throw it to the trash bin. Where do you want to be at 5? Then what's the first thing you're doing now? And then these steps are like, okay, what are the continuous things we can be able to do? Now, when you talk strategy now on a bigger perspective, is tech shouldn't go and create a goal that's not aligned with the company's vision and whatever. So if tech says we're going to implement microservices architecture and rework the entire system, but we're losing money, it's useless. Tech needs to empower everyone else, right?
Yeah.
And needs to move us to where we are selling products, we are making money, we are putting the lights on. That's what tech is supposed to do. And tech needs to be really paranoid about it. And also, another thing is also thinking about, how do you get better? That's tech. And we're improving and we're building stuff and solutions and we're getting better, right? So from my perspective, is if you look at all of these things, when you sit down and talk about strategy, take time out as founders. You don't need to go and pay for a hotel, I don't know, thousands of euros or whatever. No. Even you guys saying, hey, let's go to this place outside the office. Let's sit. It's 2 days. Let's really dig deep into this concept. Where do we want to be? We're having a problem of, I don't know, pricing. How do we solve pricing for us? Who are the clients we want to look at? How do we get to those clients? And this is a discussion where all of you guys come with the aim of collaborating. People prepare for it and they're really engaged in it. Because this bit where you have, especially I've seen, it's like technical co-founders, you can get really caught up into the thing of saying, I want to write code, But okay, fine, you will write code, but you need to think beyond the writing code to say, we already have a solution. How do we evolve? And you don't start having strategy discussions and you're like, very few people get into that bit of, yes, we are selling. Tech is selling. Everyone is selling. It's like you're going out, you're talking to people. When you have time, you spend time switching and saying, hey, I'm going to go and do this. Because it starts to shape the way you think about the company and shape the way you think of everyone in the company. I've been privileged currently 2 times to work with 2 of my bosses who actually understand the business side of things, and their CTOs really understand the business side of things. So that they will actually explain to you, no, these are the unit economics. We need to get to this level of selling, this number of clients before we can be profitable.
Okay.
And they look at the company like that. So that's who the someone like a CTO plays in that perspective. Yeah, I think I can talk on and on and on and on, and can spend like 12 hours.
Nice.
Yeah, if you don't.
So
stop
I just want to unpack some of the goodies that you mentioned along the way, and something that you spoke about domain expertise and being able to understand what you're working on, the domain itself, and being aware of it. I'll need you to unpack that from a perspective of a founder. How important it is for them to, most of them, they would understand about the area they want to build in. If someone is building a startup on agriculture, it's because they've seen a problem in agriculture and they believe through their startup they'll be able to distract that. Okay? So for non-technical founder, it's either this person is coming from agriculture background or not, but one way or another, they got involved in agriculture or fintech, either in their lives or investment or whatsoever, to be able to spot on a problem and being able to say like, you know what, this can be automated. And I'm not sure with what, finding a technical founder or a developer for them to be able to understand and help them to build something. So 2 ways you could spin this. One is from a founder being able to understand the tech, like how important is it for mostly non-technical founder, because the technical founder know about the technology a little bit. For non-technical founders, how important is it for them to understand the tech? And for developers, engineers who are building, because these people are coming from 2 different worlds. All right. For developers who are like ideally computer scientists, programmers, software engineers, how important for them is to understand what domain they're building in. Okay. One another, they need to understand about agriculture. If it is in finance, it is in mining, whatever, they need to be able to dive in and be able to understand how important is this for the success of any digital solution that is being built by these people, if it's a startup or even in a corporate service.
Yeah. So let me give you a good example of someone who people hate and love at the same time. Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, yeah.
Elon Musk. But what's the business of Tesla? Everyone will say it's produce electric cars.
Cars, yeah.
But that was not his end goal. His end goal was batteries. And if you look at how much money the guy is going to make in the next few years, it's insane if you think about it. What he did was very simple. Guy starts Tesla. For you to run electric vehicles, you need a battery. So he optimizes not on the car itself, because BMW can produce an electric car, Mercedes can produce an electric car, Volvo, Lamborghini. There's so many cars. What does he go and do? He says, hey, I'm going to build a factory that produces batteries. But how do I scale this thing? How does this thing called batteries, how do I scale it up so that I make like proper money from the batteries, not the car? And if you look at this concept, what he does is he says, okay, hey BMW, I'm going to make the plans of Tesla open source. You can actually get the open source car. If you want to produce as IPF software, as a car, an electric vehicle for a car, you can get Tesla thing, make it. Here's the problem. It depends on the Tesla batteries. So it's a classical example of, goes back again now, another story, second story. If you have it's a popular story. It's like if you have a mine, a cave mine where people are mining gold, and you have workers who come and use axes and they mine. You ask someone what's the business they will start. They'll say, I will start a business that sells axes for the people to go and dig. Okay. Someone else says, hey, I'm going to start a business that sharpens the axes. So I'll sit outside the cave. As they get in the morning, I will sharpen their axes for cents. There's a guy who will open a thing there that sells axes themselves. Now, this guy who's sharpening will make a lot of money compared to that guy. Why? He can sharpen any axe. You buy your own axe, inherit an axe, do whatever. I will sharpen it for you here. I sharpen it for you as you go in. If you want, I sharpen it for you in the evening. You'll even bring me other things, but I'll sharpen it for you. Makes a lot of money. That's what someone like Elon Musk has done and is doing. Now, where am I going with domain knowledge? If a topic I've not talked about so far that people would be shocked, this guy is in tech and he did not mention AI and machine learning. He's a fake, he's a fraudster. I was building on it. So what's the knowledge you need to have? Let's start with technical, because that's where I play at. But let's start with technical. You need to understand the business.
Yeah.
Not the technology. Understand the technology because that's easy for you. But you need to understand the business. What's the industry you're at? Do you dedicate time every single morning? Even me as an engineering manager, I take time to read. I have books and I have blogs that I've subscribed to that updates me on engineering management and also updates me on the industry that we're doing. So can I pick in and know how these people are doing? What's this thing on renewable energy? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, right? Okay, we go to renewable energy and I understand my domain. I know this is where I'm working at. Why? Someone can reach out and ask me, or if I make the switch, let's say from this company and go to another company that does renewable energy and it's a startup, I should be able to provide that level of information or expertise or knowledge to say, hey, we're building this. This is why we need to build it like this. So that's domain. And I'm going to summarize them with the one. So from a product perspective, non-technical founders, as we call them, right? Non-technical founders need to understand how does the technology work, not to the nitty-gritties, but it would be nice if you can engage in discussions to say like, yeah, okay, so you're able to say like, hey, we're using microservices and this is why we use microservices and because this is the benefit of it. Why? Because you're having this chats with the technical founder and you do this exchange of information. None of the two founders should say, I am the one who knows more things than the other. No, try and share the knowledge. When you meet, try and share the knowledge. Have your sessions where you talk about, hey, this is where we want to move. This is why we need to do it. And sometimes we as technical people sometimes run and hide behind this thing of saying, oh, but they will not understand it. Or the non-technical people say, hey, but it is hard for me to understand.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you understand really deeply, but understanding it. I am currently the chief product officer for the company where I'm working on. Brilliant guy. This guy understands tech to levels you have never seen. But he works at a bigger company where if you're a product manager, or a product owner for that matter. And your work is to go and do your UX study and understand the why are we building the thing we are building and what are we building. He understands even to the how they do the implementation. He can engage in discussions and understand, this is how we are building it, this is why we're building it. Why? Gives you context. I'm not saying you know all of it, but having that general info of what is happening. Now, for the two people, they need to understand the industry they're in. There's the domain knowledge itself of them saying, I understand I am in the agricultural space. We're in the agricultural space. We're either the last mile delivery people. We do, hey, we collect everything and we organize transport for you so that you take your produce to the market. That's really good. That's amazing. Now let's come and talk about this thing in general now. When we talk about this whole topic in general, is like we discuss and say, hey, so for example, for the people who are in agriculture, right? So if I'm in agriculture, for example, if I'm in the last mile delivery of something, like, hey, we get products and then we ensure that it gets to the specific B2C, B2B, doesn't matter who your client is, right? One of the things we need to have at the back of our heads is understand the whole industry. Why is it important to understand the whole industry? It's because you start seeing these trends that are forming. And you start to see like, how can I adapt, or what are these new opportunities that I can get? But I understand where I'm working. I'm not saying you start diversifying very early on. No, I understand if it is, for example, if same example of how we deliver products to the market. How are people delivering goods to the market from the agricultural field? Oh, wait, some of them actually have an industry where, for example, like Twiga in Kenya, right? So get the bananas and this is how they take them to the market. Wait, are they using refrigeration tanks, trucks? Are they using, what are they using to take it there? How do they ensure that these products get there on time? Wait, we take 2 days to take something from here to here. We think that is good. Wait, I've seen a company that's actually doing it in a day. How are these guys doing it in a day? And they're not using planes or helicopters or drones. How are they doing this? And how do we optimize our processes so that we get there in time? And so when you start, the only way you get it is something that we were talking about earlier, right? Offstage, right? It's exposure. Easiest way to do exposure sometimes is not to travel a lot, because maybe you don't have the money at that time, right? And it's easier, just read. You can literally right now on Google, on Google News on your phone or whatever, set up a way in which you read news every single day that is concerned about your industry, and not only for your country, but also for abroad. Because I'll tell you the truth, right now, as I'm here, there are a lot of ideas that I've already picked that are working in the West that can work in Africa, and the ideas that are working in Africa that can actually work in the West. Yeah. And so when you merge the two of them, you're like, we can optimize this thing to work like this. I don't need to go and build like a drones thing. But what is AI? AI is just like a accumulation of like, I'm taking data, I'm running it through a model, and then I get like a predictive analysis there. I can help it do X, it can help me do B, it can C, D, etc. Right? And so from where I sit at is, hey, do you know your industry well enough? Data. Who are the most important people there? Who are the players in that field where you're in? Who are my competitors? What are they doing? What are the new things that they're thinking of? And how can you start getting ahead of it? Sometimes it's not even thinking of beating your competitors. It's just like, can I provide them with a solution that makes them use it? And then they'll be totally dependent on me. Then I become the market leader. So back to the story that I'd given on Elon Musk and batteries. Anyone, if you build right now a car based on Tesla's model, you are dependent on his batteries. It doesn't matter, you're dependent on his batteries. And he's already producing it at a huge scale such that it's so hard for you to not be dependent on that, and you can't even beat him. And so you see, for him, it's like, yeah, cool. I don't make money from this. I'm going to make money from the batteries. Yeah. And I'm going to make more money from the batteries than from building a car for it. And getting into the specifics of saying, I'm going to build this knowledge will really help the two people, the founder, technical and non-technical people, where you engage in discussions about it. Talk about how you guys are doing it. Do your this thing called market research. The people who do market research, I've seen it.
You've seen it?
I've seen it. It's market research based on data. They even know how much is the competition selling. So they're able to say, hey, we are selling 5 units less than what our competitors are selling per week. We're doing 20 installations less than this is doing. We're doing this more than this is doing. Hey, we need to optimize here. Okay, wait, they're better than us because of this is the process that they use. And you're reaching out and like learning about how people are doing things and doing things and doing things. And I feel like right now, because of AI, we're actually in the edge. This is the core of the information age, into like You have information, and what are you doing with it? And this information, you can gather it. Google is Google, Facebook is Facebook, Tesla is Tesla. All these top companies are top companies because they have one thing that everyone else doesn't have: data. You can build a search engine, but you don't have the data that Google has. You can build a social networking site, but you don't have the data that Facebook has. So when they say we have 1 billion users, you can't beat them no matter what. So that's what I would actually say into the domain knowledge that someone needs to get to the point of you understand the data, you understand what I need to do to get the data, and what is the data that you're doing it, and you store it. From day one, you're storing the data. And when you have the discussions with people and you tell them, hey, we've sold a pitch like, hey, we've sold 50 million units. Oh, sorry. Let's talk a small number so that people are not scared. We've sold 5,000. Out of the 5,000, we've made X amount of money. The X amount of money, we can easily project that we'll be able to sell 10,000 or 20,000 by the end of the year. We are in November. By the end of the year is December. Because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or 1, 2, 3 things that are not out of this world, but they actually make sense. Why? You can say, hey, based on the data trends that we have seen and the analysis that we've seen, this is where our graph looks like. You know, and the only thing we need to optimize for is to reduce the cost of how we actually acquire new customers, and then we'll be good. Understanding such kind of like numbers and knowing the data that we have is very important for most of us as founders. Yeah.
Okay. Nice, interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Now, I want to go into your full-time job now.
Yes.
And we're going to pack on something interesting there.
Yeah.
So you are an engineering manager.
Yes.
I tend to understand what does that mean really, but it could be like such a fancy title. Managing, like you are almost at the top, managing the development team, how they get to do things, and listening like from the either product team and being able to translate and take that down to the team. And I think at some point you are involved in recruitment and retaining and training the team. All right. Now let's go into the problem that it's probably most common in Africa, and I need to understand the context of how does that look like in the first world country. Talent scarcity.
Okay.
All right. Because the excuse that you get with most startups or like technology teams that are building solutions will be like developers are not good, developers are not enough, at least in our context in Africa. And developers are developers, and those are complaints that you get at least when you get to interact with founders and everything. And probably the issues from the source of talent and everything. Now, if they say Africa or East Africa, there's issue with having enough engineers. How does it look from the other end? And just based from what we've seen, how can we then be able to get at least to a certain level, being able to say it doesn't really matter, and how can we be able to tackle this moving forward?
Okay. So interesting one. I like that you've thrown me into the hot seat. Okay, so I'll say this. So my title as an engineering manager is it's two ways, right? So you manage the engineering resources within your team, capacity, etc. So I manage a team of 7 people right now. 3 seniors and 4 intermediates. So you have 3 backend engineers, 3 client side engineers. That's like Android. So we have 2 Android apps, 2 backend systems, and we are about to add web based application. So we're gonna add like 2 of them. And we're not going to expand the team, still using the same resources, right? And I don't have a web engineer in the team, but I have people who have played around with web into it. Now, my way of managing engineers is a little bit different and interesting. It looks very chaotic, but there's like, I call it organized chaos.
Organized chaos.
And the organized chaos is like, I start with one thing, the first principle thing, like I need to get good people. Skill you can teach, but also I'm not going to say I'm going to teach these people that I need someone who is skilled. But the thing that makes me hire someone over the other one or get this person to work with me over the other one is the attitude. And it's easy to get the attitude, the culture, and I can easily test this based on the toolkit and experience I have just by an interview of 45 minutes. I can easily tell the attitude of this guy is not in the right place. I don't need them to be agreeable with me, because if they're agreeable with me, I have a problem. Number two, I need to hire someone who I'm sure I can learn from despite my years of experience. So that's the first thing I start to do. If I hire smart people, and then once they come in, I sell them the vision. Where am I going to? And it's never empty things. It's never like, I want to build this big thing. No. Because I'll tell you the truth. If you talk to any of my team members right now, especially the seniors, give them this very big, lofty ambitions. Right now, all of them, sell them these lofty ambitions. They'll bring you back to earth and ask you, that's all good, but what are we trying to solve? Oh, I'm going to build this. We're going to be president. We're going to buy new cars. Nah, no one is interested in that. They're an engineer. They want to build things. I give them a challenge that is interesting enough. That's what engineers are driven by. What is interesting enough for the engineer to be able to solve now? So that's how I do the recruitment, etc. Maybe that's like in the background of what goes on in my mind. It's really organized chaos. You can talk about it for long. But in the part of engineering management, there's the recruitment side of things, right? So how do I get these people? So it's a simple baseline of you have a network of people. You as if you're a software engineer who's starting a company and you don't know at least 5 to 6 people who you can reach out to, junior, intermediate, senior, either to do contractual work for you or to join you full-time, intermediate and even juniors to join your company, there's a problem somewhere. You need to go and hang out with those people again. There's a really big problem. So right now, if I'm to move to another company and I'm told to staff 50 engineers, I can get the team of 50 engineers.
All right.
I don't need to think about it. I know I'll get people from Africa. I've not said Kenya, where I'm from. I've said Africa.
All right.
Africa. And I'll get people from Europe, and again from the US. How did I get these people? It's very simple. You have opportunities to talk to people and listen to what they're doing and collaborate and do all of those things. Goes back to the initial thing I said, don't be a bedroom developer. Go out, meet people. You're a CTO. Try and build a network of engineers, because sometimes as a founder, as a tech person or whatever, you're always recruiting. At the back of your head, always know you're always recruiting. Why should you be doing that as a technical person? It's because, do you have big dreams to scale? Your team is not going to take it. You'll need to add people at some point that have experience. Boom, then you get that. So you're always talking to people so that you see, like I'm talking to this guy, maybe he can come in and help me. Contractual. Again, I've said contractual full-time and junior, you can bring them in. Now, when people say they're not good developers in Africa, please stop lying. Africa, that's what I usually tell them. Please stop lying. Where are you looking at? Yeah. There are a lot of bad apples. So I'm not going to contradict people, because I know when I say that sentence, please continue listening. I know people are triggered already. This guy doesn't know. I agree. There are bad people out here. Bad people. And in the bad people, there are also very good people. Very good people. Right attitude, right. And they're looking for these opportunities. Sometimes the disconnect is how you sell them. Quick story is when I was doing, so I'm not talking from engineering manager only. When I was doing Moringa School, I had a very good Ruby guy to teach Ruby in the company. I was not paying him full time. Friend, known each other for some time, sold him the dream for a couple of months. He said, yeah, okay, cool, I can come in. This is my work. Things I told him I don't have money, but he's not going to pay. Problem we have in Africa is we are all politicians. How I say that is we always sell these fake things to people. Hey, Grayson, when we make it, man, I'm going to give you $1 million. Okay, and then we make it. Then I don't give you $1 million. Your trust has gone down.
Yeah.
I used to tell them open, hey, I'm going to give you $1 million. We are at 5 students. When we get to 10 students, I will increase the amount of money that you make.
Yeah.
Please remind me when we get to 10. Boom. How much should I pay you for now? I can't hire you full time, but I can give you things to do for me part time, because I need you to help me to move here. Again, feel, not do. You can have the dream as much as you want, but you think you're going to order someone to come and join your dream and everything. We don't care about your dream. It's your dream. Where you had it is irrelevant. You probably had it in the toilet, bathroom. It doesn't matter. Beer. So I'm going to help you build it. I don't care about it. I want money, maybe. Some people are driven by money. Some people are like, I want to build this thing. I want to be part of this. If you can, and this is why I say technical people need to learn how to sell. Why? You're selling your dream to the developers. You're trying to get these people to come in. You're meeting these people. You're selling it. You're trying to convince them. And you have to be someone who's full of integrity as a technical person. Because if you're a CTO and you're not technical, people will refuse because people talk. In as much as you think you talk and spoil people's reputation, they're also talking and saying, don't go and work there. Why? I worked there and they didn't pay me for 5 months. What? Really? Yeah, what were they saying? No, they just said they'll pay me and then they never paid me, And sometimes it's like, I understand there's no resources and everything. And Frank, you don't know. Okay, fine. Basic things. Hey, I don't have money. This is what I make. There are levels that I got to with the first few people I worked with at Moringa School that was insane. I told them, this is how much money I'm charging each student. This is how much money you're paying for rent. This is how much money remains. I don't get a salary from here, but I'm willing to give you this amount of money.
Okay.
I'll pay you after 3 months. The first people that actually were teaching at Moringa School was me and some other guys. And I remember they were making money after 3 months. After 4 months is when you're paying. And they're actually okay with it because that was the agreement we made from the start. Hey, I'm not going to give you money now. I'm going to give you money after 4 months. And they're okay with it. We give them money after 4 months. And we don't delay people's payments at all. And it's never like, I see people when it comes to time for payment, that's why they're like, let's do a discussion on how you worked this month. Please, you know what I used to do? I'd give them the money. A week or 5 days later, I talk to them. Hey, I just paid you. Cool, awesome. Are you happy? You received the money? Yes, awesome. Let's talk about your review for the last month. Not before you pay the money. Because why are you talking about a review before you pay them the money? You're wicked. That's just the word I use. So afterwards, and we do this review and they start to understand like, hey, okay, we're doing this, we're building. And they're like, look, I want us to grow. If we get to this milestone, we'll increase. We will get there. I'm not going to like throw you under the bus or anything, right? So how I really try and see the optimization is this. When you start off, maybe you can't hire senior engineers.
Yeah.
That's fine. Agree with that, accept it. Okay, you're the technical person. Work with that. You will be the technical lead and hire these people to push code for you. You're a software engineer or you're in software engineering. Engineering entails a bunch of processes that we have to use. So what's the process you as the person can bring in someone to push these things for you to make sense? So for me, if I was starting, I'll really lay it out into like very small chunks of code. Again, be agile. So we're being agile. This. I have 5 things I need to do. I break it down into the basic of things and then we need to execute 1 thing, 2 things, 3 things. It should be like as simple enough for someone to be able to implement it and you can always go back and improve on things. Because your interest at that first part is how do I get things out for people to start using? Fix it, understand, and then you move. And they help you to push it. Non-technical founders, however, would say, hey, but we don't know these people. Network, again, you need to sell your dream to customers and employees. You're always selling to these 2 people. Get someone and talk to them. Don't sell empty promises because I feel like right now also developers have also learned. People have told them, we have been burnt as developers. Like someone comes and tells you, hey, do this thing for me. I'm going to pay you. The guy receives $1 million. Your phone is no longer important, disappears. Goes and then you hear he's hired this, top foreigners, top, etc. And you're nowhere to be seen. And then you have a backlog of like 8 months of salary.
Yeah.
The guy refuses to pay you. And I'm like, but why are you doing it?
Yeah.
So we think about such kind of things. So sell. Sell is sell to potential customers, sell to potential people that you're going to work with, your colleagues. Know how to sell it to them. How you manage the resource now is the next thing. If you're really planned out well, again, goes back to that documentary on how Mercedes does its things. I can go look at how long. Another thing you can easily Google and find out is how long does it take for someone to move from not knowing to actually going to do, I work at a car factory at Mercedes. And the person is proud. They just put the tires, but they work in a car factory. Just put the tires. And it's very easy. It's like a process that has been there optimized.
Just put the tire.
From here, put the tires here. Then you put the screws for them. Okay, cool. Then I take this thing and tighten. Then I move to the next person. How can you optimize your process such that even if I have beginners, they know what they need to do. They know how to do it because you've shown them, hey, I saw you did this and then this is what you did. And for the technical people and the non-technical people, understand what is being done. And then you can move from there and then you actually get to improve over time. So for me, that's where that bit of you thinking the strategy bit and the small micro things that we actually contribute to actually come to play a part of it all. And I think it's a skill you need to learn and refine over time. You're not going to be good when you start out the company, but you need to learn how to sell. Continue selling every single day. Sell your vision to people. sell it to people, talk to people. And then also there's another thing that is really important that actually helps you. When you reach out to other people who you tell them, hey, this is my issue, this is my challenge. Just because you start a company, don't go out there being proud. You need help. Being vulnerable is one of the things I learned very easily. I'll come and tell you, hey, Grayson, doing this company, I need a product person. Sometimes you might not get the help from fresh people. Sometimes it can be a company, fellow startup person. Hey, man, you're doing this startup. How do you get engineers, man? Can I outsource my thing? What can we do together to do this? And there are all these other companies that are out here. You can have a non-technical founder, but you have like companies. And this is not because I'm in this Be Agile podcast that it's you, Grayson. It's like, you can look for people like Grayson and say, hey, man, I'm doing this thing. Can you guys help me? How can you guys help me? This is where I am.
Yeah.
Is it an equity deal? Is it a future agreement thing that is written out that you're like, hey, let's go to lawyers, let's say this. And then you see how you actually move from there. So it's a tricky thing, but I don't think we have people who are talented. Maybe the thing that people should start saying is that this exposure is not there for us to learn how to do it. But it's the same problem even with the West, right? We still grapple with talent. The biggest thing I think for me that I'm happy with is I'm able to keep my team so far. Like keeping them happy, because my current boss, when I joined, he gave me one KPI and one job. Keep these developers happy. I had 3-4 devs at that time, and they said, keep them happy. I was like, oh, okay. So what am I supposed to do? Keep them happy? I'm from Africa, man. I don't know how to keep people happy here, like, exactly, right? So, and it's like, you try out to read things, and then you learn how to like talk to them. So, you try and figure things out. Yeah. But don't be afraid to ask for help.
You speak some German already?
Only Guten Morgen and
Guten Morgen.
No, but I'm learning next year, so it's like,
you're learning next year.
Yeah. The culture is what I've really understood right now. I'm starting to understand it like deeply.
Okay.
In how they talk. Germans are very direct people,
Yeah.
so I learned how to be direct with people, and it's getting better. It's a very big mind shift from what we have in Africa, where being direct is offensive. And the one time I did it, I think last year when I came back, I was like, hey, I'm telling people this. I was told by my parents and some friends.
You're very direct.
Yeah, no, they actually didn't say direct. They said, please be respectful.
You can put it in Swahili.
Yes. Wacha madharau.
Acha madharau.
Yani umepanda ndege, hizi siku kidogo, umerudi, now you're showing us that you've made it. Hata sisi tutapanda hiyo ndege pia na tutakuonyesha. Okay. Then I was told, this is not your home anymore. Sasa ukishaambiwa hivyo, na wazazi, na sisters and brothers, plus friends that you've had friendships in 10 years, 5 years, 7. Yesema sawa. I can do more of the listening, less of the talking.
Awesome. So, Frank, I've known you for years, almost over a decade, and I know you are a learner of life. You like reading and consuming content and everything.
Yeah.
And I've seen you, like those micro improvements. Every time we meet, like you're growing. You're like a different person every time we meet.
This is a testament, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Frank is, like moving from one step to another. But I think apart from thing that, and you have not spoken about this anyway, and probably not asked you this question. Like, it's not like what are the from your career point of view, right? Right now you are working in Germany and coming from here. You're successful from most of people in the ecosystems. Like you're getting all those exposure and everything. Now, in that entire path, what has been the, how to put this, a most down moment that you were so down? In terms from like, is it a failure or a challenge that you were able to obviously raise out of it, and how did you navigate through it?
Wow. Here's the problem. I've had so many failures, man. Like, okay, other people say, oh yeah, but you're successful. And I'm like, no, not yet. And I'll tell you this. I think there are many, and some of them is you. There's something that always haunts me all the single time. Multiple things, right? So one of the things that I'll say, like 3 main things that I think really kickstarted some certain things, right? So there's the first one It's like, it's okay. There's so many. To be honest, there's really so many that you've actually mentioned. There are really so many major ones. But let's talk about this. So I was doing Moringa School, right?
Yeah.
Co-founder, everything. I had a whole goal. I was really, at the moment, I was thinking of like, okay, how do you evolve? So for me, I'm a huge believer of don't grow, evolve. And the difference is coming from, if you read the Theory of Evolution by Charles Darwin, whether you're Christian or not, please read it. You'll understand why I'm saying it. So if you read it, it really proposes this thing where before you became like a human, you know that thing where they say, hey, you started from like a cell, then you became a tadpole, then I don't know, you evolved, then it's like a frog, and then from a frog, then all of a sudden you're like this thing that is walking upwards, and then you became a human being, apes, human beings, right? And from my perspective was like, I've always been a believer of like, you need to evolve all the time. And because I have so many failures and I keep on optimizing for my failures, I actually have never gotten to a point where I've stopped and really reflected and said, oh my God, I've been successful. Now, when I was doing Moringa School and then it did not work out, I remember calling two of my friends to tell them that, hey, I need to leave this. This is the reason why. And it was mostly like a breakdown of like me and the co-founder, right? And I remember like looking at it and asked myself one question. I was like, okay, I have done this thing, I've built this thing, I really believe in it. I really want it to go far to based on like some levels that I'm already seeing that it's supposed to go to. But it's not working out. It's really not working out. And I'm really like, I really felt so bad. So I told him, hey, I need to actually leave this because it's really not working out. This is the thing, and etc. And I think one of the things that I really, really felt bad was they were more stressed about it than myself when I was leaving. And I walked away, no shares, no nothing. Boom, done. Walked away. The thing is, I felt so bad afterwards because for me, I was like, let me leave instead of fighting over this thing because I don't want the people who work here to lose their source of livelihood and etc. Let them continue on, right? And I remember the way I left also was also like, yeah, okay, cool, I'll walk away and everything, and that was it. And of course, the co-founder told me like, hey, you need to step down. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And I think for me, it was like that moment of saying like, okay, so I've built this, but I'm not going to be able to continue with it. It's heartbreaking, yes, but come on, we need to move on, right? Another instance actually earlier than that was when I had moved to Nairobi. Had this lady really liked, she was just a friend, and she said, hey, I'm going to come visit you. I want to see where you're staying. I was staying like a it's a 2-bedroomed house, but we share it 3 guys, starting out in life and everything. And I remember she came to my house and she said, hey, I don't hang out with poor people. I don't smoke. She knows very well that I don't smoke. And she knew my scenarios. I just moved out. I remember she lit up a cigarette in my room, started smoking it and actually said it and called her friends who came and picked her up. And then they went. And I was like, wow, she was saying the truth. She was reporting the truth as at that time. Because, of course, did I have the money? Didn't have the money. And it's been that, then the whole founder thing, and then the major thing that actually happened was, I think I met this lady, and I was like, oh yeah, we had talked, we're doing this online relationship and everything. And I think in 2021, around August, I think that it really broke because I was like, okay, I have fixed the way I operate boxes, men and boxes and Logica. I fixed this area, I don't need to think about it. And then it came crashing down and she ended it and everything. Of course, we've talked afterwards and like, yeah, okay, this is why I ended it. This is what was the context. There was no cheating, there was no nothing. Just like out of the blue, hey, I need to stop this because of this. And I think it broke me to a level where I said, hey, what are the things, how I picked myself up now? What are the things I've not done in Africa? I took stock. I've started a company. It has grown to the level that it grew, and then I left. That was Moringa School. I had done things with kids. I'd really experimented on that. So I was like, wait, I've never worked for a company that is started by Africans. So then I went for kiosk. So I worked at kiosk, but I wrote something interesting in a diary. Happy to share that photo with you afterwards. Right? And I wrote, leave Africa by in 1 year's time. This was 2021 August. Leave Africa in 1 year's time. When I was writing it, I wrote it down. Like, I'm a huge fan. I walk around with notes because right now I have one in the hotel room, and nowadays I write a lot of notes on my phone. And then 1 year later, I was not looking for the job after I wrote it. I was focused on kiosk. and I really wanted to do kiosk. Like if you look at what I was telling the Android team, they'll tell you, I wanted us to do Square. Like if you know Square, the company, I really wanted us to do Square with kiosk. That's what I was thinking of when I joined kiosk. I was like, we're going to do this. There's payments. There's this. We're going to do this. That's my problem. I'm like I join a company as an employee or whatever. I'm usually like a small founder there. I usually start to think big about the company, whether the founders have thought about it or not. I'm just like thinking like, hey, this is where I think this company can go. Sometimes I can share it with them, get the opportunity and tell them. It's like, okay, cool. Can get to Square. And I think in 1 year, it was like me constantly saying like, okay, this is a heartbreak, but I go back to the fundamentals of what can I do? 5 next steps. You get into a hole, man. Like disappointment is part of success. It's not, I feel like successful people are not as a result of like big things that they've accomplished. It's how did they deal with this big disappointments, you know? Hey, I applied for this job. It didn't get me. Boom. Okay, that's cool. Now let's move on. And I saw like, okay, if it's in tech, I've started a developer community. It's huge. It's like the 4th largest one or 2nd largest one in the whole world right now on Android. We've done the conference for like a couple of years now. There's like 2021, 2022. It's like, I've done like 3 years, 4 years now. It's like, okay, that's good. I've handed it over to someone else. That was the thing I really wanted. And that's the thing how I do companies. Like I start with the succession plan already in place, like thinking about like, how would I hand this over to someone else? How would I empower someone else to be able to run this so that I can do something else? And I think me picking myself up was, what can I do every single day? Small thing. One thing to get better. Or just one thing. Okay, leave the house, go for a walk. Because you know, when you fail, it's never about like the skill or anything. Don't lie to yourself you're going to code. Because you get into this thing, we act. Now is when mental health is becoming a big thing. I'm even shocked I'm even saying the word mental health. But it's like this thing called depression, right?
Depression.
And what depression is, you know, like in Africa, we're never told like stress. We call it stress, but it's like we really casually say it. So like you can meet your friend and like, hey man, I'm really stressed. But we really take it casually. Like, stress, what's the problem? You know, you tell yourself very quickly like, don't worry, everything will be fine. Done. And we expect you to be okay. If you're a guy and we find you crying, we're like, why are you crying? Like, over what? A lady. Dude, come on, move on.
Yeah.
There are many other, there's a lot of fish in the sea, right? I was like, yeah, but then you're like, yeah, but you don't understand. She was like, this. Dude, how does she look like? That's where we summarize it as, you know? And then when you say like, how does she look like? What we say is like, we look at how does she looks like, and then we summarize it as, no, you know, you can get someone else. This is how she looks like. This is better looking. I'll introduce you to 10 other people. It's not the same, you know? And I think for me, it's what's the one thing I can do? I can go for a walk. Physical activity is what I ran into. So I leave the house, I go for a walk. I would do things that are not related to my day to day. So one of the things I did, I think, was I became more serious with running. I know I'm from Kenya, but okay, jogging. Why am I saying running? Jogging. I got more serious with jogging. And I think when I became more serious with jogging, it was mostly for fun, just to clear my head. And then I loved running for long distances for fun, jogging for long distances. And then it became better and better and better. The other thing I think that I also did was at some point I started picking up this habit of occasionally writing notes on paper and then throwing them away. Just like putting my frustrations on paper, throwing them away. And then I also went back to like, hey, can I spend time in fundamentals, programming, name it, whatever. And then just dig myself down into it. So there's, of course, a lot of things you can talk about, like how you get yourself out of a rut, but it always goes back to those 5 things. Like what's the one thing you can do right now to be better? I wake up, I make my house, and I'm really happy at that.
Yeah.
Today, I cleaned my bathroom. That's at the end. You know, when you're depressed or under stress, you don't do anything. You want to just sit there. You will write code, but it doesn't make sense. And then I think after that, I started like observing and saying, not like, what can I build now? It's like, what can I do next? Okay, so I do next, and then I move on. I do something small, then I do on. So there's all these things where you end up like building and then you move on from there. And then also like friends, you know, sitting down and listening to people's stories was also something I love doing till today. Because you've seen, like when we meet with you, I always ask like, hey, how are you doing? What are the things you've done? Very specific. And I use that because at the point of me sitting down, I'll be like, there's this guy I know, his name is Grayson, and he's done this. This is where he's gotten to. It's taken this time of time. Okay, what can I start doing now?
Yeah.
And then I start building on it and being consistent on it. So yeah, that's the thing. But disappointments are there. Stress will be there. Trust you me. And it's going to be a lot of it all. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Why are you sweating, man? It is like, for the context, it is 16 degree
It's too hot.
in here. I'm freezing.
This is hot. 16 is hot.
What is the temperature in Germany?
Right,
Like,
right,
what's the
now,
stand-
right now it's 4 degrees.
4 degrees.
Or
Like,
3 degrees.
This Kenyan here is sweating.
No, seriously, I am sweating because it's really hot in Dar es Salaam. And I think my body has already gotten used to
Uh-huh.
4 degrees. Because when I was leaving, it was 10 degrees.
Uh-huh.
And I could walk with the t-shirt only.
You could go with it.
Just like this, I just like
Yeah.
the t-shirt and I'm like, I'm okay. So now
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's okay.
okay, it's a t-shirt and then
6 degrees.
6, yeah. I can walk for like a distance
Yeah.
and then I put on a sweater. And I'm like,
Awesome, Joe.
and I was born in Mombasa, by the way.
You're born
Born in Mombasa, just like
Ah,
Dar es
born in
Salaam. So you
Mombasa,
can
yeah.
imagine the temperature.
yeah,
So,
you're born in Mombasa, and like,
so it's not pretending. This is evidence.
it is really hot in here,
Exactly.
and I'm freezing.
Maybe it's because also I'm seated in a hot seat with you. So when I grow up, I want to be like you. So
Okay. All right.
yeah.
Awesome. Frank, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
And really appreciate you being here and sharing your experience with all the exposure and everything that you've learned.
Yeah.
Now, final 3 points or takeaways that you'd wish to advise. And like, if you have one-on-one with someone investing in technology now, trying to build a startup.
Yeah.
And you have only a minute to tell them
Mhm.
so that they can be able to build something that is, like a unicorn to that level,
Yeah.
and they're just starting now.
Yeah.
What would you tell them?
So I'd say this. In a minute, I'd say currently there are things I'm looking at that I think are really of interest to everyone. Micro actions or microeconomics and things like that. But then, I mean, like you saw me talking about it, it's like I spend a lot of time thinking. So what are the micro actions? What are the small things you can do every single day, every single hour that can lead you to your big goal? If you cannot break down your big goal into small micro actions that you can take now and the next step, your next 5 steps. What's your first step? Then optimize when you do step number 2, optimize it. And then you go back to step number 1 and you're in this constant churn of like, hey, I'm making steps, I'm making improvements. Very micro ones, right? And it's like your next, it has to be a step, something that you'll be like, I need to do X, I did X. I need to do X, I did X. I need to get Grayson's contact, I've gotten Grayson's contact. I need to do this, and it's a very finite way of looking at the world. So that's like the micro things, right? And the other one is like all this like first principles thinking. There's like, if you Google it right now, you can go and like read on it, but then like spend time to like think about it. But it's mostly like you asking about why is it happening the way it's happening, and then you get the data from there, and then you question like, okay, what is the foundation of all of this data that I have? How can I sift this into like information that I can actually get to understand? And then what are the steps that you can take? And then you question again, why was I thinking the way I was thinking in the initial part? And if you continue operating in this cycle, you become this person who's always like thinking that way. So it's this micro actions or microeconomics that I was explaining earlier. And it's like micro steps that people need to do. And then this first principles thinking, that's like, I feel like it's a thing that has really like I've been thinking about for some time now, and then how do you get better? And I feel like if you're doing anything right now as a startup, I know you're an African, you have black skin like myself, right? I would say this, do not get intimidated. There's a lot of stories of people who've not made noise or who are making noise right now that you can easily reach out to and you can really learn a lot. And I'd say this, if you're doing a startup, do not be afraid to feel stupid and ask questions. If you get into that mode where you ask questions and you go and ask someone like, hey, I see you've gotten here. How did you do it? What are the steps you're taking? And really respect this person's time. I'm currently doing it in Germany by talking to CTOs. I'm not saying engineering managers, CTOs, directors of engineering. I'm having these conversations with them. Hey man, I see you've done this. I saw your LinkedIn profile, or I saw this, or I've had this. Do you have time for like a call, a coffee and whatever? I will really respect your time, 45 minutes. And it's really 45 minutes. I sit and I have notes and I ask them the questions and I'm like, hey, I'm going to write things down or I'm going to type things out. I'm not typing anything. My phone is on airplane mode. Here's the thing. I'm literally writing what you're saying. I respect your time. And I feel like I've been doing this now. And sometimes you get into the middle of the conversation. They're like, are you looking for a job? I'm like, I'm not looking for a job. Are you sure you're not looking for a job? Like, no, I'm not looking for a job. I just want to know this information, your experience, what have you learned, etc. And I really pick out a lot because for me, I still need to give back to this continent because I really love Africa. I really love it. I'm not lying to you. And the reason why I come back every single year, twice or once or 3 times, is because I just want to. There's a level we need to get to, and I think we really, really will get there. And we've always been leapfrogging innovations. You know, so people are saying, hey, mobile phones. They thought we would get to landline and then mobile phones. No, we got from no phones to mobile phones. And then we started sending money via mobile phones, something that does not exist in the West.
Yeah.
And then now we now have this AI age. I've really been thinking about it and asking myself, at what point will we start seeing the impact of Africa in AI and machine learning and all this RAG, you know, the random whatever, right? So I still feel we'll have a place to play in AI, in machine learning. I'm really sure about it. Really sure about it. I would not be surprised if now I was looking at something interesting as to end. In 2019, we did the African Girls Can Code. I think I told one lady this. I said, hey, if you're going to get into surgery right now, don't. And they looked at me and they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, I know, surgery. You'll do 5 years of med. 2 years you start to learn. By the time you're getting into this thing, let's say at best to be a surgeon, you're looking at 10, 15 years. I'm like, okay, so let's say 10 years. That was 2019. They were starting school in September of 2019. We are in 2024.
Yeah, 5 years.
5 years, right? So they're halfway there. They're probably done with med right now or about to finish medicine by next year or end of this year, right? Not to make anyone feel bad, but this is how technology is wiping out some things. Was it John Hopkins? They were training AI models with robots.
To do operations.
Exactly, to do operations. And you know how they're doing? Video. They learn from the video and then they do it. And they're doing it to pinpoint perfection. You can Google this, you can look at it. This is 2024. They've just done. And they're like, you're going to get better. The person argued with me, that will never happen. And I told them this. There are people who are obsessed right now with getting rid of some certain industries. Be careful to say never, because I told her this. I said, people like me love to prove people like you wrong. So get paranoid about proving people wrong. You will get heartbreaks. It's fine. You're a founder, you'll get heartbreaks. Have a system of people and friends to go and cry. Then once you cry, come back. Let's do it again. We don't reward failure in Africa, but reduce the number of failings that you're going to have in your life. And then you'll get better. And then you'll be a better person over time and over time. So that's where I would actually leave it and say, like, yeah, for other things, we can really talk until God knows 10 hours of talking non-stop. Me and you know that. So
Awesome.